Our reaction to Adrian Newey joining Ferrari!
Matt, it's Aston Martin.
Well, it's an emergency, but not really an emergency, is it, Tommy? It's been one of the worst kept secrets since Kimi Antonelli to Mercedes, Adrian Newey going to Aston Martin. And we've got a lot of thoughts to share on this one and how it might affect the whole atmosphere, nethersphere
landscape
of Formula One. Yeah, or landscape. That would have been a much better word, yeah.
Yes, it was the worst kept secret. It feels like it's our 50th emergency podcast of the year. Like, what a ridiculous season. I've never seen so many breaking news Formula One graphics and ones that are actually like massive. And yes, the finally we know where Mr. Newey is going after all that speculation at the start after him leaving Red Bull.
First question comes in from P1 Patreon member Art Ludens. Why did he sign for Aston Martin? Okay, let's break it down in an easy, digestible manner. Because, of course, you'd imagine every single team on the grid would want Adrian Newey, but the short list was probably Aston Martin versus Ferrari. Why would he sign for Aston Martin? A lot of money. Based in the UK. They have fantastic road cars, and I'm sure he wants a Valkyrie himself. If not, he already has. It doesn't have one. Alonso does, but maybe Adrian wants one as well. He's always wanted to work with Fernando Alonso, and maybe, just maybe, he sees some potential in Lance Stroll.
Project Lance. This is the final chapter of Project Lance.
This has all been building up to this moment.
You've got to think, while it's easy for us to look at it from a completely Formula One point of view, you've got to remember that he is a human being and it is a job. And while, it's going, oh, look at the weather and amazing stuff in Italy, you've got to think like, he's got a family, he lives in the UK. It's not as easy for him as a Formula One driver who spends most of their time on a jet. But if you look at the teams in the UK, and if that was very much a deal breaker for him, that he wanted to stay in the UK and keep, his kind of family life in the UK, he's worked with Red Bull, he's worked with McLaren, he's worked with Williams. So the next kind of logical thing would be, for a new challenge, would be Aston Martin.
He's just ticking them all off, isn't he? He's getting them all. Next question, P1 Patreon member Tony Soprano. How soon could we realistically expect Newey to have Aston Martin challenging at the front of the grid? Now, this isn't going to be an overnight jobby. He's not just going to walk in and everything will become better. That's not how any of this works. Of course, 2026 will be the first time we will see any kind of Adrian Newey influence, but I think even then that's probably too early to say that it will be an overnight clicking of your fingers, boom, here we go. Don't get me wrong, Adrian Newey has got it right in his side of the role almost every single time in the last however many years. Of course, when Red Bull weren't winning against Mercedes, that was more down to the engine than it was the actual structure of the car, because it was always very good aerodynamically. Is it a coincidence that Red Bull have seemed to fall apart immediately after he's walked away? I think slightly, for sure. There are many factors as to why Red Bull have started to not work. But for me, the big thing here is that Aston Martin now become, and this is the first time I would say this has happened, one of the most sought-after teams on the grid for drivers now as well. Of course, you've got an ageing Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll who, well, he's going to be there forever, Project Stroll. And will we see Lance Stroll champion of the world? Let's see. But Aston Martin should, in theory, move forward with the greatest designer of all time joining their team. So I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched to say from 26, maybe 27, 28, when teams start to get used to the regulations, because this isn't as if we're going... It's not a small overhaul, is it? It's a massive one. So not to say that Adrian will get it right, but he usually does.
I think one of the key things here is that you always want Adrian Newey for a regulation change, so that is the positive side to it. And I don't want to downplay Adrian Newey's ability, because that would be stupid. But Adrian Newey is an aerodynamicist, and we're going into an engine formula. And, famously, he got, McLaren on to where they were, Williams, then he moved to Red Bull. He got them winning with Sebastian Vettel 4 championships in a row, and then it switched to an engine formula, and Mercedes were the best, and Red Bull weren't really anywhere and weren't winning, and it kind of all felt like it went wrong. Even when we changed again to the wider cars in 2017, I think it was, everyone was kind of like, oh, this is surely where Red Bull are going to be good. And it was still Mercedes. It was only when the regulations switched again in 2022 that we've seen this domination from Red Bull again. That was an aero formula, not. So from that side of it, I think it is actually going to be a lot more of a challenge for Aston Martin. So yeah, it's going to be, it's not going to be an instant like Aston Martin have Newey now, they're going to win the World Championship next year.
Let's move on to the next question from P1 Patreon member Justin F194. Will Alonso retire now? No, Alonso will go forever now. There is no doubt in my mind he will. This was the one thing I think keeping him going at this stage. Maybe Lawrence Stroll going, we're going to go sign the best designer of all time. And he's like, yeah, but when? And then they've done it, right? So for Fernando, he's going through this pain now. Aston have no idea what they're doing with their car. 1 minute they're on the edges of Formula A, then they're in the middle of Formula B. But this pain will all be worth it come 2026 when Alonso is 45 years old and winning the World Championship. This is what Fernando is holding on for. There's no way he is going to sign for any less than past 26 as long as Aston Martin will have him, and I'm sure they will. Because I think in a weird way as well, Lawrence Stroll, it's kind of a good situation for him to have, right? He's got Fernando Alonso, who is one of the best drivers to ever grace the sport, but he is getting older. Science will be going against him as we continue the seasons. It doesn't matter how incredible you are, science kicks in. So if Alonso gets slightly worse every single year from here on in, Lance Stroll could, in fact, it'd have to be a serious decline for Fernando Alonso. But if it did, and then Aston created the greatest car on the grid by half a second a lap, we're seeing Lance Stroll world champion and beats Fernando Alonso in the same car. And Lawrence Stroll,
a 60-year-old Fernando Alonso.
Yeah. And Lawrence Stroll goes, a win's a win. Okay, so that's how I see it.
My God, like my first thoughts on this was like, why is Alonso 43 and not 33? Because, and I bet he is thinking the very same thing. You can talk all you want about him burning bridges and if it's self-inflicted, but why now? Like, why is Alonso finally potentially could get this car when I think he's been on unbelievable form, even when he was, other kind of finishing 5th or 6th in a Ferrari, and you might go, oh, well, he wasn't all that. Like, in my opinion, he was the best driver in Formula One then. So it's kind of like he will hang on, but like you say, time will catch up with him. And that is quite a sad thought. I just love it. I just want him to get a win. Like, please just get that 33rd win. That's what I want to see. Even if he has to climb out his car with a Zimmer frame. And Lance Stroll, fine, have the World Championship. If 60-year-old Fernando Alonso gets a win, I'm happy.
Right, next question. P1 Patreon member Lumixion comes in with, how long before we get rumours that Verstappen will join Aston Martin? I don't see it. Lawrence Stroll does not want Max Verstappen to come alongside Lance Stroll in his team. There is no way. I can't see it. Because this is Project Stroll. The whole reason for Aston Martin existing at this point is Lawrence Stroll putting his son in as best position as possible. Not like so it completely... You're not going to stick a Latifi or a Sargent next to him, because that gives Lance Stroll no credibility if he beats his teammate. He's putting in selectively Fernando Alonso, who's 43 years old, in there. And
Sebastian Vettel when he was like maybe arguably not anywhere near what he used to be.
Yeah, when he wasn't. Yeah, Vettel, sadly, wasn't anywhere near his prime when he was alongside Lance Stroll. So no, I can't see this personally. As long as Lawrence Stroll's in charge, nah.
What is the end game for Lawrence Stroll here? Is this... because we've seen what he's done. He joined Williams, he was all right. Okay, they weren't a great team. Racing Point, oh, I'll buy them. Thank you very much. Aston Martin, invest in them. Like, let's make this super team. He's essentially like keeping his son in Formula One, buying his way up in the performance like a Formula One game where you're literally like adding R&D and using all your bonuses to, make everything better. But the reality is that Lance Stroll will not beat Max Verstappen in the same car unless there's some serious sabotage going on here. So what is the end game? Because if he puts Verstappen in the car, Lance Stroll will not be world champion. He just won't be. So is it that this Adrian Newey signing is the penultimate piece of the puzzle, and then the final piece of the puzzle is to put Nicholas Latifi or Logan Sargent in the other car, and he can just cruise his way to an easy world title? I don't know. I think I'm more inclined than you are that Verstappen could genuinely go there, because
alongside Stroll,
because I don't think that it is necessarily like because if that was the case, why have they got Vettel? Why have they got Alonso? Because
we've just spoken about that. They are
I know, but he's not beating them, is he? He's
not beating them. He wasn't trounced by Vettel consistently. Alonso, right now, Project Alonso is still beating him. But I don't know. I feel like because obviously having Vettel or Alonso in the team is going to push the team forward. That's in his head, right? It's not like they're going to turn that team into a championship-winning team immediately.
Or
so there is a benefit.
Because we've seen Alonso almost like mentoring Lance and being very respectful and tutoring him almost.
This is like a really expensive piano teacher that he just keeps putting in next to Lance Stroll to teach him everything about Formula One.
But they have to get a much weaker driver in as his teammate.
Maybe we're about to see Lance Stroll as a hybrid of Vettel, Alonso, and then Verstappen when he joins as well. And Lance Stroll, when he's about 30-odd years old, will be the greatest driver of all time.
Here's the thing. Verstappen says he's not going to go forever, so maybe he does just go in, develop the car, show it can win the World Championship, and then Verstappen goes, right, I've won some more titles. I'm going to go play iRacing now, get Latifi, and let's get Lance's world title. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, final question. P1 Patreon member Dennis. Will Newey get frustrated and maybe even leave early if Lance Stroll costs them the Constructors' Championship? He knows what he's signing up to right now. He's not expecting Lance Stroll to become any better than he currently is. So it's not going to be a complete surprise to him if he makes this incredible car and Lance Stroll costs them the Constructors. Like, what? I'm sure if Adrian Newey is... he's a very clever man. I'm sure within his contract it goes, so my bonuses won't be affected by Lance Stroll's points in the coming years, correct? Okay, perfect. But I don't think he'll get frustrated. He's doing what he loves. He's 65 years old. He can hang it up whenever he wants. Like, he's just... He does just love designing cars, and this is what he's going to do.
He's got so many more options at Aston Martin as a road manufacturer, as a team that does Le Mans as well. He is a motorsport kind of... he's a petrol head through and through, so he's going to have all those options as well. So Lance Stroll costing them Constructors' title. If Lance Stroll costs them the Constructors' title, that kind of alludes to the fact that they've won the Drivers' title. So I'm sure he'd be very happy about that, because it's another Adrian Newey World Championship, regardless of who the driver is. And he can add that to however many he's got. Loads and loads and loads. And, if he does do it, and he can basically be like, I joined McLaren, we won everything. I joined Williams, we won everything. I joined Red Bull, we won everything. I joined Aston Martin, even with Lance Stroll, we won everything.
I mean, let's be real. The guy does not need any more accolades, does he?
No, he doesn't.
This just for bants and for serious cash money, but mainly bants, I think, because he's not exactly strapped for cash at the moment either. But look, a fascinating chat. I'd love to hear what everybody else has to think. Let us know in the comments on YouTube or over on social media. It's been, quite the rabbit hole that we've gone down. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, bring on that 50-year-old Fernando Alonso winning the World Championship. Can't wait. Yeah, that's going to hit serious amounts. Live on Twitch, watch along. That'll... Yeah. Charles Leclerc I'll be 40.
versus Fernando Alonso. You'll be... That's crazy. Look at you, though. Look at you. You could easily sign for a Formula One team as a junior driver. Anyway, that is it. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you this weekend. Baku is coming up. Predictions and all that sort of stuff, as you have come to expect, will be with you very soon. So lots of love. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.